Hey everyone, this is Tyler from the Revival Harpsichord Revival channel, also known as RHR. It's been a while, but I'm back. I have a working instrument now, and later on we're going to hear a piece by Handel. I'll get into that a little later. But right now I just wanted to kind of show you what this instrument looks like from my perspective when I'm playing it. This is a 1960s or so. It's a Newport Cristofori model. As you see, we have the two manuals and 5 pedals down here that control my registrations. Up here, this one right here is a lute stop, which brings these little felts here up against the strings, and it creates kind of a clutch sound. I can demonstrate that in a minute. The other one here is what they call a half hitch. Essentially what that means is it makes the plucking point a little smaller than it normally is, and it creates a softer sound. With this particular instrument, I don't ever use that. This was at one point quilled in leather. I have redone it in Delrin, and in my experience, Delrin doesn't really seem to work very good on the half hitch. And on top of that, if I really want to play softer, I move from this manual to this manual. So quite a lot of work has gone into this instrument. Since the last recording, one of the biggest things I've done is the upper manual here. These keys, originally when I got the instrument anyway, the keys were about halfway down. So right now they're up here. They would have been, let me see if I can do this with my lighting here. They originally would have been about right there, which is about half the height of the bottom ones, and I didn't like the look or feel of that. So I went ahead and I upped every single one of those keys a little bit so they nearly match the bottom. It might not be perfect, but it's close enough for me. It also gives it a little bit of a deeper feel, which I prefer. I know most harpsichordists prefer short key dips, but me coming from a piano background, I actually prefer it to be a little deeper. And when you have an instrument that has 4 ranks of strings, you actually appreciate that little bit of a dip, just that much more. It gives you a little more control, in my opinion at least. Everyone's going to be different, but that's my take on it. So yeah, the keyboard was leveled. The bottom keyboard was also leveled a little bit to make it appear more to make it appear more level for one, but it also helps when the keys are about the same height, so when you're feeling for them, they're exactly where they're supposed to be and not a little above or a little below. It's not perfect, but I mean, for me, it's night and day compared to how it used to be. The other thing I've done is in here, what we're looking at now is a row of jacks. This is the 8-foot set for the upper manual. Initially the problem with this instrument was some of these jacks were sticking. I'll just play a couple over here. So that's what it looks like when you're playing. They were sticking in their holes. Let me see if I can get in here a little bit. You'll see down here each jack goes into one of these holes. This is different from a conventional harpsichord. For one, with having the round jacks instead of rectangular jacks like most harpsichords would have. This also has metal registers, which is this, for those of you who don't really know anything about harpsichords, the register is the part that they sit in right here. So I had a lot of sticking notes, and with this being metal, really the only way around it was to clean the holes, and I found it easier to just pull everything out. So I had to pull out all 4 of these ranks. If you look from the top, you see there's 4. So all 4 of these had to come out. Every jack had to come out, and I ended up taking the plates out from the bottom of the instrument, so there was nothing in this area whatsoever. That took a good long time to get repaired, but it was well worth it because now I don't have a keyboard that sticks anymore. So yeah, we have 4 ranks, and we'll just look at the top one here. So like I said, this first one we're looking at is an 8-foot stop, which means that the notes sound relative to where they would on a piano. So like for instance, middle C right here is going to sound like middle C. Or in this case, it sounds more like B. I have my harpsichord tuned down a half step to give it a little less tension on the soundboard, which to me creates a more mellow sound. Since this instrument was designed to be tuned at the standard 440 for an A, I just think it sounds much better if you drop it down. I mean, a lot of the times with these revival instruments, they're not always made correctly. And not only that, but since these are mass-produced, or were mass-produced back in the day, they don't always get the love and attention that they deserve before they leave the factory and go to the customers. So, just a few things to look out for when you're looking at a revival instrument. Is just be prepared for things that don't work as they're supposed to. And I've been dealing with that ever since I bought this thing from day one. But hopefully I have remedied all the problems. Another big thing I had to do was regulation of the jacks. So for instance, when you're playing an instrument like this, you want every note, every string to pluck, what's the word? You want them to pluck one after the other. You don't want any of them to pluck at the same time because it creates a harsh sound, and it also makes it harder to play, very hard to push. So down here, these are my pedals. So I'll just demonstrate what these do. This first one over here to the left, this is the principal 8-foot stop. So if we push that down and play the bottom keyboard, that controls this keyboard here, and play middle C, you get middle C like on a piano. And then to get the same thing on the upper keyboard, it's this pedal right here. So you have a sound like here on the bottom and like here on the top. And you'll also notice that there's a sound difference there too. This one sounds louder and more full, whereas this one is a little softer and a little more nasal sounding. And the nasal sound comes from where it's being plucked on the string. The plucking point for that one is much closer to where the string attaches up here at the tuning pin. So it gives you that sound quality. Another thing that this harpsichord has would be a 4-foot stop, which is an octave higher than the principal, and that's operated by this pedal right here. And the 4th foot on this is on the upper keyboard. That's it with the 8-foot. Let me take the 8-foot off and you can hear the 4-foot by itself. Compare that with the 8-foot stop down here. And the other thing you can do is you can add 2 stops together on these keyboards. So I'll go back to putting on the 8-foot stop for the upper, and as before, you'll hear both playing together. And on the bottom keyboard, I also have a 16-foot stop, which is an octave below the principal. And on that one, it's of course this pedal right here. And that will give you a sound like this. Try that again. It's very, very deep on this instrument, which I love. And coupled with the 8-foot stop, you would get this. The last pedal in the middle here is the coupler, which will couple the 2 keyboards together. And you'll get a sound like this. Very full, very rich, especially down here in the bass. So that's a little tour around my instrument. That's how I make noise. I know a lot of people who hear this instrument. Unfortunately, that is the the place in history it has become is just, I call it the black sheep of musical instruments, because it's not very much appreciated as an instrument. They call it fake harpsichord and plucking piano. I actually like plucking piano because that's about what it does. But the reason it gets also that name is because it is built on the principles of the modern piano. It has a much thicker case than it would ever need. The string tension will never be as much as it is on a piano, but yet it's still built with that same string tension in mind, which does, I admit, it does make for a sound that is not as resonant as a historical style harpsichord would be, but it does have a special place in my heart because I learned on an instrument similar to this in college, and it's pretty much all I've ever known. I have played historical instruments before, and I do love them. I have nothing wrong with them. I happen to love this style of instrument as well. If I had the money, I would definitely have an authentic style harpsichord, but I don't. So I make do with what I have, and that's good enough for me. I just hope that a lot of you guys can appreciate this as an instrument, because I don't really hold this to an instrument, comparing it as an equal to a historical style instrument. It's definitely in its own class. And I mean, much like you would play organs or even pianos themselves are not in the same class as a pianoforte. And I mean, Mozart, early Beethoven, they definitely would not have known, sorry for the bad angle, a grand piano like that. They would have known something much more dainty, light. So that's also kind of in its own bracket too. And that's how I look at it. That's what justifies it for me. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to start jabbing. You probably want to hear some music. So I'm going to next play a piece called Water Music by Handel. And it's a gorgeous piece. I believe it's actually a string, it's either a symphony or a string quartet, I'm not sure which, but it's for strings. And I've heard it played on the organ before and I loved it, so I found an arrangement for piano and I just kind of beefed it up a little bit and played it on the harpsichord. So without further ado, let me present Water Music by George Friedrich Handel.